welcome or welcome back to 500 Hobbies. My name is Amanda, and this is the place on the internet where I talk about my various hobbies. So, as I started making these videos, I have been going through past projects and realizing how many projects I have completed with the Knit Picks or WeCrochet brand of yarn. And I thought it would be fun and helpful for me to talk about all the different yarns that I've used from that brand and kind of weigh them in context of each other. And now that I have some garments made by these yarns that have lasted a few years. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Knit Picks or WeCrochet, it's the same company, is an online yarn store that I consider kind of the first step up once you have been working with a lot of acrylic yarn, maybe from Michael's or Joann's, rest in peace, and are ready to kind of start experimenting with different fiber contents, but still aren't ready to spend maybe $30 a skein on these hand-dyed indie yarns, which of course are super pretty and really soft to touch and great to work with. But of course, it can be expensive if you're mostly shopping in sweater quantities, which is largely what I work with. I think Knit Picks is a good option for kind of like your first step into working with different fiber contents. So I will be talking about 8 different yarn brands to yarn lines from Knit Picks today. We'll start with the acrylic and then go more into like more pure wool content. I have used other yarn lines from this company other than the ones I'll talk about today, but these are the ones that I feel like I've used extensively and have some products or projects that have kind of stood the test of time. So I've kind of been able to see how it's held up. So the first one I'll talk about is Brava. This is one of the standard ones from Knit Picks, I'd say. It's 100% acrylic. It comes in a few different weights and also in a broad range of colors. I used this on what I call the McLaren hoodie, which is something I made for my partner before we went to the Formula One race in Montreal last year. I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I don't work with acrylic yarn a lot. And I did pick the yarn for this sweatshirt kind of before I understood a lot about mixing different fiber contents and weights. I think it's pretty similar to what you might get at a Michael's through like Lion Brand or something like that. Don't really have any complaints. It worked fine. It wasn't really too hard on hands. And in terms of price point, it's about $4 a skein right now, which I think is pretty reasonable. So if you're someone that like works a lot with acrylic, it might be somewhere that you turn to if you see a sale or something, especially, and you could stock up. I think the strength here really is the range of colors that it comes in. Okay, so next I'm going to be talking about Comfy. Comfy also comes in a few different weights. Most often I've used it in the fingering weight, and I think it drapes pretty nicely. This is a cotton acrylic mix, so it's 75% Pima cotton, which I'm told from the internet is like a nicer kind of cotton to have in your garments, and then 25% acrylic. I used this yarn in 2 big projects. First was the Andes tee for myself, where I held it double, and I finished that about a year ago. So I've gotten a good amount of wear out of that. And the second is this crochet polo that I made for my partner that I finished earlier in the summer. And kind of similarly to Brava, I think that there are a good range of colors. I wish that there were a little bit more, but we did get some nice ones that we picked out. Like for my partner shirt, I really like this marlin color. And the cabin color for me, I think, was a good color for fall. In general, I thought it was easy to work with. The products that I made with Comfy are pilling a little bit at this point. I'm not really sure if there's a way to get around it when there's acrylic content, but maybe just something to think about. If I was able to make these over again, I would probably use something with 100% cotton content, or linen. And I'm actually doing another crochet polo top with Knit Picks Cotton, which is the cotton linen blend. So once I finish that project, we can talk about whether that is a big improvement over this line or not. Next, I'm going to talk about City Tweed. That is the first tweed yarn that I've ever worked with, and I was really excited to because you've probably seen that I mostly work with solids, so I thought working with tweed was kind of interesting, unique for me. I used this for a Harry Potter themed sweater that I knit for a family member last Christmas. I did not realize that the Harry Potter sweater was a tweed sweater, like based on the movies, but that was fun to work up. This yarn is 55% merino wool, 25% superfine alpaca, and then 20% Donegal tweed. And I used it in the Aran or heavier worsted weight. This is the only yarn that I've worked with from Knit Picks that I don't think I would recommend to others. Working up, it was fine, and actually I thought it was pretty soft when I was knitting it up, but when I blocked it, it bled a lot more than I've never really had that problem with another Knit Picks yarn, so I was surprised by it. But like it bled so much that like I had to kind of retire the towel that I was using to block it. And I was also kind of worried about it because, you know, it was a gift knit. So that's like the last thing that you want someone to have to deal with after you give them something handmade. So I personally would not work with this yarn again for that reason. So now we're going to start to move more into the merino wool category, which is typically what I like to use. So now I want to talk about Stroll. Stroll was also part of my McLaren hoodie. I think I used it for the orange color, which is pumpkin. This yarn is 75% fine superwash merino wool, which if you don't know means that you can safely put it in the washing machine and dryer, and then 25% nylon. So I'm not a sock knitter. I think I would like to try it at some point, but I'm told that Stroll is a really nice sock yarn, probably because of the nylon content. And people are typically able to get a pair of socks out of one skein, so I think that's really nice. It was really lovely to work up. It comes in a really wide range of colors, so I would recommend this yarn. I think also maybe when I start to knit socks, it's something that I would like to do. Maybe I'll try it with Stroll. Next, we have gloss. So gloss, I did my very first raglan sweater, which I talked about in my first finished projects video. I did that in the color Kanai. And I also did a hat for my dad in gloss last year in the color navy. This is 70% merino wool and then 30% silk. It was my first time working with silk, and it was just really nice. I think it has really good drape. The colors were really nice that I picked out. It was easy to work with on the hands. I think I kind of forgot about this yarn line because Knit Picks has had a lot of new ones come out recently, but this is one that I would definitely use again, and maybe I would try and look into it for making like a shawl or something like that. Kind of along the same lines is Twill. That is 100% superwash merino wool, and in the color Rosewater Heather, I actually crocheted my bridesmaid shawls when I got married a few years ago. And it was a really great crocheting experience. The superwash content is really useful for gift giving because people can just put it in the washing machine. I know if you're not a knitter or crocheter, you may not be willing to do all the hand washing steps for those garments. It comes in a really nice range of colors, Rosewater Heather in particular. was a really good match for the bridesmaids dresses that my friends were wearing at my wedding. So that's kind of how I ended up with Twill, but certainly would use it again. So next I want to talk about Wool of the Andes. I think this is one of the better known Knit Picks yarns. It's known as kind of the workhorse wool of the brand. It is relatively inexpensive. It's usually between $3 and $4 a skein, and it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. I used this to make, I think, my biggest project to date, which was this huge poncho that my brother requested. I used this forest green kind of color. I think it's called Aurora Heather. And then the contrast color, I think I did use some variation of Brava, which was gray. This one was a little bit hard on the hands, I'll admit. Peruvian wool is a little bit scratchier than merino or maybe other types. So if you're someone that's sensitive to that, I might not recommend this yarn. I'm a little sensitive to it, so I personally would not make myself anything in Wool of the Andes. Since it was a poncho and my brother typically like wears something under it, I don't think it was a big deal for this project, but that's just something to keep in mind if you do have sensitive skin. And then lastly, I want to talk about what I really think is my favorite Knit Picks line, which is Swish. I've used it in bulky, undyed, DK, and worsted. I think this is a really good yarn for gift giving because it is 100% superwash merino wool. I've done a ton of projects in it. Most recently, this basket weave cardigan that I gifted my friend a few weeks ago. I just have a really good experience working with it. Sometimes with superwash, you worry about it like growing a little bit too much when you're blocking it, and I really haven't had that kind of experience with Swish. It comes in a lot of different colorways, and like being on the website here, I can see that it has expanded since I've last been on here. Swish is usually between $5 and $7 a skein, so I think it's like pretty reasonable, even if you're doing a sweater quantity. So I made my most recent cardigan in Loam Heather, which was this really warm chocolatey brown color. I have also done some things with Nutmeg Heather, which I think was a really nice kind of cream with brown in it. And using the undyed bulky, I have done a scarf, and I also did my toddler Jenny jacket in that yarn. I just find it super soft, and in terms of long wear, I haven't had any issues with it either. So I would say this is my #1 Knit Picks yarn to use, and a good one to get into if you are looking for something really reliable and super wash. So I think this is a good company in terms of service and price point, and I've only had good experiences with them. Okay, so that's all I have for today. I hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one.